All right. Intro. Let's do this shit. Hey, Misfits. This is Mitch over at Misfit Model Trains. Today I've got two guys here ready to go, lined up, and these guys are going to be recording videos for us later and posting to the channel and to Facebook. So go ahead and introduce you guys.
I'm David. I don't
And
do
my name
video
is
training.
Terrence.
All right. So what am I planning on bringing to the table? Well, hopefully how-to videos, tutorials on how to like track down and kind of, get into the process of recording my process on building an empire down in the basement and do reviews and sound demos and all that such. Should be fun, I think.
It's always going to be fun. It's always fun in the world of model railroading. A lot to learn, a lot of different tricks, techniques. Uh, that's what I love about the hobby is the amount of variety. So
Hmm.
looking forward to being a part of it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep, definitely.
So, so what are you guys
All
planning?
right, where shall we start?
What are you guys planning on bringing to the table?
Well, I can definitely with like decoder installs um, and programming. I've actually got a load programmer on the way to learn how to. I guess like we can learn how to work that together. Weathering, which that's probably more Terrence's forte.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not a professional, but I know a few things.
I mean, the main part of the channel is, we all learn something, and I think it'd be good to be able to document, you know, where we're at to where we get to eventually.
I get a lot of requests for custom painting and decaling.
Well, I mean, you did kind of paint a bunch of 2716s.
Yeah, I kind of do have that down just a little bit.
Yeah, every variation of 2716.
Yeah, literally, I do. I have every variation that every paint scheme that locomotive has ever worn. I have a model of it.
That's quite the accomplishment. I can't say the same.
Well, no, actually, I take that back. There is one that I have yet to do, and it's only just because I haven't done it yet. The When CNO donated 2716 to the Kentucky Railroad Museum in 1959, I think it was, the stencils for steam have was obviously long since been long gone. So they stenciled her in um, diesel in the diesel lettering, and that's the only one that I haven't done yet.
Hmm.
Interesting. I didn't even know that.
Yep.
And that
See,
sounds
we learned something already. We're already learning.
so they stenciled it in what, the gold lettering or the.
I don't honestly that I don't know because the only pictures I've ever seen of it were in black and white, but I'm sure it's probably the whatever they used on their diesels at that time, probably that deluxe gold, yellowish, whatever color.
Mhm. The one that stands out more on the tuxedo anyway.
Yeah.
Hmm. So Terrence, talk through your weathering.
All right. Well, my weathering is pretty basic. It's nothing that's too advanced that the amateur or beginner like myself can't do. I use a combination of skills as opposed to certain things. Instead of having the most expensive weathering powders and paints and airbrushes that you can buy, I take chalk pot pastels. I wish I had them in here with me, but apparently I don't. I've moved them. And I take a very, very tiny flathead screwdriver and I scrape the chalk pastel color of choice, and that turns into powder. And that becomes my weathering powder. And if it's done correctly, along with some acrylics, you can get this finish accomplished on any train locomotive of your choosing. And that's done with some basic Walmart acrylic paints, the chalk pastel powders, a variety of brushes. And I will say the brushes are probably going to be my most important piece and most important tool when it comes to doing any kind of weathering. You're going to want your small brushes to get into fine areas, apply finer details, As we all know, when the diesel locomotives, when they get refueled, they have some spill go on right below the fuel cell. You can see that kind of replicated on this model here. That's just a very matte jet black. You don't want it to be too glossy because what you're trying to simulate is that it's not fresh, but you want it to reveal the black of the fuel cell that lies underneath all of this grit and grime. And just a little bit of build up here on the sill of the unit. Obviously, a lot of work on the bogies. And that's a combination of mainly four colors, and that's going to be two different shades of brown, a gray, and a white. Um, that's really for Norfolk Southern anyway. I mean, I live along the Norfolk Southern Washington district that runs from Lynchburg all the way on out to Powell up north. It's the bottleneck between the B and H lines, and I see a lot of NS power. Um, this particular locomotive, I only used probably two prototype photos, and they weren't even of the real 9555. Because the modern day 9555 is white brow, horsehead scheme, and it has a totally different numberboard font. But it's funny, myself, Mitch, and David were actually talking about this for the video about doing era specific things versus kind of freelancing and finding the happy medium between freelance and realism. And I try to finagle that line as much as I can. I've always loved the thoroughbred paint scheme as opposed to the horsehead. I think it looks better. So when I got 9555 last year, I think it was, or year before, when Scale Trains had them on sale because they had an overstock of them, I bought it. It got here. It got I can't remember exactly what brand it is. I think it's CMR, PTC array, and some weathering. And that's it. And that's as it sits. It's DCC and sound. But I hope to bring to the channel a lot of tutorials and how-tos on my techniques of weathering. And I'd love to learn from people in the comments, their various methods. I know a lot of guys like the airbrush, but I don't have one of those. So
Yeah, and airbrush is, I mean, it's $80 for an airbrush or more, and then you have to
you
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 still
got
have
to
to
get the
bend all the
compressor. You got to have the plumbing.
So I mean, you're looking
It's
at almost what 100, maybe $200 before you even get to the paint.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean there are cheaper alternatives out there. You can go on eBay or Amazon and get one even. But I mean, you obviously when it comes to something that you're putting paint on, a model that's worth hundreds of dollars, you don't want to mess that up and put yourself in a predicament where you can't undo something. That's my biggest modeling tip is do not dull coat until you are 120% satisfied because the moment you seal that on that unit, it's there until you
Yep.
strip it. And once you do that, the decals are coming off, the factory paint's coming off, and you got to start from complete scratch and redo it all over. This one actually this has been sitting like it is now for probably the past 8 months, and it's still not sealed because every time I look at it, I think of something else I can do to it. It's a very fickle hobby, very easy to be fickle in this hobby.
Oh yeah, I mean, has it gotten easier with Scale Trains releasing or Athearn releasing Prime for Grime units or freight cars for weathering?
It depends on what you're looking for. Again, it goes back to that era thing. If you're looking to the prime example, I'll show you. I have a unit. This one isn't prime for grime, but they did do a run that was prime for grime. This is ATSF SDP40F, or if you want to be specific, the SDF 40-2 with the rebuilt nose and its intermediate, well, late phase with the rooftop AC. Um, and you can see it looks brand new. Obviously, in the real world, it wouldn't look like this for too long, especially running on the Tehachapi. Would have got pretty dirty. But with the Prime for Grime, I did see a couple of these when I was shopping for one of these units. I saw a couple of them pop up, and I almost bought one, but I wanted one that was in the regular Santa Fe livery, not the BNSF patch. And the reason for that is because prototypically, this is again dancing on that line between real and freelance. I wanted one that I could lead on a train and have it be prototypical. When BNSF acquired these units, they took the rooftop AC off, and they did that for the reason of they didn't want these units leading trains because they were unsafe. And the reason that they're unsafe is even with the rebuilt nose and step platforms here, they were still very dangerous. And you got to remember that when BNSF first became a thing, right after the Kodachrome disaster of shouldn't paint so fast, rolling crew changes were still a thing in those days. And crews and railroads alike wanted to keep the trains moving. Obviously, trains are money. So crew members would get hurt boarding and dismounting these units because of the awkward stairs and just the awkward layout of the nose. So they didn't want them leading because they felt that that would place them at a liability for injuries, and obviously that means lawsuits that they don't want to pay. So these never did lead. So I wanted to get one in SF lettering that had the prime AC unit and still would have been configured to lead a train. Just because I hated these things at first. I thought they were ugly, but full cow locomotives grew on me real quick. But as far as the prime program, I think it's a great idea. Um, it does give you a good basis to start from. However, I feel like the for this particular unit, the yellow was doled down just a little too much. Realistically, the only way you're going to be able to figure out where you should start weathering wise, I always tell everybody, prototype photos. Even if you're not trying to do that particular road number, look at multiple road numbers of the same locomotive. Look for distinctive weathering patterns that are repetitive, and you can incorporate those into your model. Prime example, the fuel tank drip on a GE. Any road number is probably going to have it. So the prime for grime is a good idea. I think it could be tweaked a little bit better. But the way I look at it, if you ask me, any unit's prime for grime. It's just a brush stroke away.
Hmm. All right, David, let's talk about sound.
All right.
So, you have had, I'm guessing, a ton of engines with sound.
Yeah.
Whether that be steam, diesel, what have you, ranging from Bachman's soundtracks.
Yeah. I've got honestly, truthfully, I probably have got just about. I've got the Bachman sound value in one of the 284 Berkshires, um, Tsunami 2, Loke Sound, and TCS Wow Sound. Now, I will say that I haven't had any experience with TCS Wow with diesels. I do have with steam, and there's it's there again. It's just really just all a matter of preference to what you like. I'm just going to take on the steam side of it. With Loke Sound, you've got the um, fully customizable specific sound files that you can make with the Loke programmer. You can do there's a lot that you can do with it. But there and again, you've got to make that $150 investment to get the programmer if you can find one because they're very hard to find. And the like with Tsunami 2, their their whistle file is just straight out of the package. There's like 90 whistles on there for Steam, um, a ton of bells, a ton of chuff rates. There and TCS well has a very wide range too. It's just a matter of what you prefer.
Hmm.
Like I've there's but like with the I like the ease in programming of the Tsunami 2. The audio assist is okay with TCS WoW. I just don't like having to once I've passed it, if I pass something, then I've got to scroll all the way back through to get back around to it. That's the only thing that I don't like about it. I like being, the audio assistant scrolling through, but once you pass something, then you've got to go all the way back through all over again. And that, and that's the drawback of it that, but
So, what would you say would be the best cheap decoder, sound wise?
probably the soundtrack's economy. You still got the same quality sound as a Tsunami 2 at a much more affordable rate. I think an economy is somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, $60 for a decoder, as opposed to pushing 100 for a Loke Sound, TCS WoW, or the full Tsunami 2. Um, and then there is some programmable. I mean, there's limitations on it because it's a cheaper version
Hmm.
of what they have, but you still have the programmability of it to get some basic like functions. You still have multiple prime movers, multiple horns, multiple bells, not as broad as the full version, but it's still a good starter getting it to where you want to be. And you still got that. But if you put an economy next to a Tsunami 2 side by side and have them sit there idling, you're not going to know the difference.
Now,
The only
is that with a scale sound system speaker, or is that with, like, let's say, a standard
just
soundtrack speaker?
just any standard soundtrack speaker, or scale sound system, Tang Bang, um, or soundtracks, Loke sound speakers, whatever speaker you decide to put in it. You'd be hard pressed to tell the difference between the two decoders. The only thing is your wallet's gonna feel still a little bit heavier at the end of the day with the economy.
Mm, yeah, I mean, I've got an abundance of sound decoders out here. I've got, the Bachman Sound Value and the Spectrum 280. I've got ESUV4, ESUV5, Select, Soundtracks, and Tsunami 1 and Tsunami 2. And the key differences that I've noticed is definitely between Tsunami 1 and Tsunami 2. It's just, I don't know, I guess like the quality of the sound is higher definition.
Yes.
Um,
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that.
V5 tends to be, it's not so much as a higher definition. I think it's more of functions. I think that's the difference with V5 in terms of, or V4 to V5. V4, the horn was very playable. You could sit there and tap that F2 button as many times as you wanted and it would blow the horn. V5 came out and you couldn't do that as much, but I'm sure that could be changed with a CV function.
Yeah. The, and and in that aspect, yeah, there is, there's a lot of, it's just really, it's just all a matter of preference and what somebody's willing to spend,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're willing to compromise on.
Yeah, like,
There's
It's all cost versus benefit.
yeah.
exactly,
Mm-hmm. I
exactly,
mean, are you wanting to take the time to build a sound file, or take one of the ones from ESU's website, drag it down from the website, and put it on the code, put it on the programmer, and then upload it to the decoder? Or do you just want to buy the decoder with all the sounds on it, and you just pick and choose what you want?
exactly. That's like I've got five five or six locomotives with Loke sound in them, and I've got so I went ahead and bit the bullet and bought a programmer. It's on the way. Should be here in a couple days. Um, and I want to start playing around with it because I've had requests for people, wanting installs on it, for me to do decoder installs for them, and that would just allow me more, because more people tend to lean towards Loke sound, because you can make custom program sound files and stick in, so they're kind of lean, that just gives me a broader area to what I can work with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just what you want, what the modeler wants is, because it's all there. It,
For now,
Yeah, no.
we get to go into. Oh, Terrence, you have something to add?
Oh, the only thing I was going to say is no, I agree 100%. Like actually, right here in front of you, you can kind of see the SDF 40 here hiding, and then the Dash 9 behind it. This is ESU. This is Tsunami 2. And I like both of them. I think they both sound great. The Tsunami 2, with this one having the dual speakers, it's really loud. It's really loud. I
Yeah,
had to turn it down a little bit. But
I
the sound quality was amazed me, and the dynamic digital exhaust effects. It just blew me away from Tsunami. I was not expecting that because this thing, using the Tsunami 2 straight to 8 feature, I can take it at idle on track power and shoot it straight to notch 8. And the cool thing about it is I can get it to like notch 2, 3, 4, and then hit the command prompt again, and it brings it back to idle. I can rev it back up, and you can actually hear the change in between each notch, but it's super clean. But ESU's got super clean sound. So it's just ESU for me is the way you want to go if you're somebody like say Bradley DCC. You want to take on and do your own custom things, be that one-off guy where nobody else has the same exact freaking thing you do. Okay, cool. You have a lot of versatility. You can create your own sound files, um, horns, bells, you name it, even radio chatter. You can do all of those things. There's a lot of versatility there. If you're somebody who just wants a really good quality decoder with good quality sound and wide range versatility with a good variety of options and working sounds and CVs, Tsunami 2 all the way.
And
Oh yeah,
on that note, I'm gonna add on to that with the Tsunami 2. This here, I'm gonna turn my camera around to where y'all can see it here. This Aston Genesis Union Pacific 844 was I got an incredible deal on, and originally brand new was you could already hear the air compressors probably kicked in as soon as the track power hit, and it was the old, I don't even know what, I think it's like MRC when it the sound when they first come out with them with the little remote that they
yeah.
had.
They had MRC first, and then they switched to Tsunami. Then they did something with ESU in 2017, and they went back to
Yep.
Tsunami.
And but this is a Tsunami 2 Big Steam 2 that I added because it was completely gutted when I got it. Somebody had cut the wires and everything in it, and I bought it used, knowing that it was that way. He had who I got it from had it was intended on fixing it and just never got around to it. But this is also dual speaker, and it's extremely loud. And
Yeah.
but you can set this. It's everything's all right there. Just set your CV, set your volume to it, and especially like running at home, you've got a lot more. It's not a sound, but like taking it to a club or at a show on a modular layout, you're going to be able to hear that with with no doubt.
Mhm. I will say some things that only have one speaker in them, they can be loud, but you run into an issue where it's quality, where like the sound quality gets lost somewhere with a single speaker. When you get two speakers in there, it kind of takes, yes, it takes more power, but the sound output is much better in terms.
And you still maintain the high quality sounds.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a drummer is my other hobby, so I understand this with like mic and stuff. The only problem is when you turn input and output volumes up, it distorts the sound. So that's why, when I first bought the SDP there, I was like, two speakers, I don't really think I need it. And I don't need it, but it is nice because if I want to turn it down a little bit, I can do that, still have great quality. If I want to turn it up all the way, I still have great quality.
Mhm. So, leading into the next little segment, the next fun segment, which should be a lot of fun, our biggest gripes about the hobby. This is going to be a section that I think is going to be, I think is going to, you know, be the best part of the podcast. So, who wants to go first with their biggest gripe?
Well, I'll start this one out. Why not? So my biggest gripe in the hobby, and I'm not even going to say it's with manufacturers. I'll be honest with you. I feel like our manufacturers are doing a really good job. Scale trains, Athearn. I know we have the Athearn purist out there that hate scale trains, and you have vice versa, call scale trains the Athearn's rejects, and vice versa. But it's not about that. I think that they're both doing a great job. Scale Trains acquired some of MTH's stuff, and I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do with that. Rapido is out there. You can never crap on Rapido. This guy's great customer service, sense of humor, great products. Bowser even a lot of their stuff. They have the GMD SD40-2s and CP livery. I was actually looking at getting one of those. Haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. But in terms of modelers, we have a lot of youngins, and that's great. Being young, getting involved in the hobby, that's great because the young people, they're the future of this hobby. Once the old heads are gone, that's all we got. The downfall is in the modern day and age, we're all very spoiled because we have companies like Scale Trains that have their rivet counter line. We have companies like Athearn that have their Genesis line. You know, 20 years ago, if you would have asked a model railroading company to produce an out of the box model that gives you all of the air plumbing that leads back to the Leslie S3L three chime horn that I've lost track of. There it is. You've got the airline that runs all the way there, that goes down into the cab and goes to the reservoir where the horn lever is pulled. 20 years ago, you didn't have that. 20 years ago, all the super detailing and tooling that you see on all these units out of the box wasn't there. Prime example, this is an Athearn blue box model that's missing a truck side frame apparently that I did myself. It started out as an eBay find. I paid like $40 for it. It was originally super detailed to be DNR GW. I put the decals on myself. I painted it myself. Did all the numbering and everything myself. And this is just an Athearn blue box unit. I still haven't put the stanchions and handrails on because I'm not done. Got sill striping to do, but that's what we had to do 20 years ago. If we wanted to get something that looked like this, we had to put a lot of time and money into it. And I think that people lose track of how fortunate we really are and how much these manufacturers step their game up. In fact, we were all talking earlier about a post, and I think all of us went crazy on Facebook. A guy had complained about a KCS Bell Scheme Gevo not having factory tinted windows from scale trains, but it had a fully detailed cabin interior, which on a blue box, you don't have that. You'd have to scratch build that yourself or go through Canon and Company, or you'd have to go through a third party or fabricate it yourself with some styrene and patience. And it was a much different hobby back then. I feel like to an extent, maybe it's taken some of the enjoyment out of the hobby, but then again, maybe it's brought some more in there because, again, you still have people like myself who want to take things and try to take them to that next level. It's always a challenge of how far can I push it, but we just got to do a better job at not complaining as much and being thankful that our manufacturers have stepped up to the bar that they have because what we're seeing come out now versus what we were seeing 20, 25 years ago, complete difference.
I I agree with that
Yeah.
100%. That's my biggest gripe that, and it's not even a gripe. It's not from the manufacturers. It's from the community that have forgotten where we've come from and how far we've come. That where, like you said, if you wanted a brass quality detailed locomotive, you had to work for it. You had to, or you either bought the brass imported model, or you sat down with the Walters catalog and you flipped through and you picked out what detail parts you needed to order. So you sat down and you did some drilling and you had to do it yourself, which there was you got lots of I got lots of enjoyment from that putting that time and effort into doing it, to where I see so many posts that of people whining and complaining about, oh well, they didn't do this or they didn't do that. So what? They did do this, and it cost them close to $1 million to do that. Be grateful that well, why didn't you do this locomotive, or why didn't you do this paint scheme? They're not going to do everything all at one time. Just
Not
Mhm.
only that, but
have a little
the
bit of
demand
patience.
has to be there. The demand
Right,
has to be there.
exactly.
If it's, prime example, I just grabbed this. I don't know if you guys seen it or not, but this, I know you remember this, David. This right here.
Yes, the Winnebago.
This, yes, this is me. It's still a work in progress. I haven't finished it. But this is a Bachmann Spectrum F40PH rear body mounted to a custom 3D printed F40PHM. Um, you can see those on Metra cabin, and they're kind of molded together. And I've had to drill out all of the holes myself, and it's not perfect. This is the first time I've kit bashed one of these. That's why I used a cheap Bachmann Spectrum shell instead of like that nice Cato one I have back there. So, but that's the thing. If you want a unit bad enough, it's not going to hurt you. Don't be scared to try and make something yourself. Get a cheap shell, get a cheap locomotive, go on eBay, look around. I mean, Bachman Spectrum, even Athearn Blue Box, man, they're all versatile. They're sturdy. The plastics are thick. You get a lot of durability and malleability without worrying about breaking it. And you can kit bash your own stuff. And I encourage people to do that. And that's the maybe that's the one negative downfall to all of the great out of the box stuff that we get nowadays is instead of being willing to go out there and take on the challenge of trying to do something ourselves, we're just like, oh well, we're just going to wait until this company releases it. Well, the thing is, if it's a oddball unit, I know there's people out there that do it, but I haven't seen a lot of people that model the Metra. I really haven't. And I that's why I think seeing a locomotive
Yeah,
like this, mass produced, with out of the box super detailing that's accurate, road specific details, I don't see it happening yet. But if you want it, it's just like this. If you want it, make it. Don't ever be afraid. There's a plethora of research out there, lots of forums. I miss forums. We got Facebook groups now, so there's lots of information, lots of people that can help you and point you in the right direction. It can be intimidating. It's especially with the way things are set up nowadays, as complicated as some of the wiring and on DCC sound units. It can definitely be a bit overwhelming at first, but as I can't remember who it was I heard say it, but whoever said it, it's pure gold. If you're eating elephant, take one bite at a time. Start just take it one step at a time. Focus one small chunk at a time. You eat elephant one small bite at a time.
it's exactly. I can't agree with you more with that. That it especially like with a decoder install. I watched, I think, like maybe one YouTube video and maybe one or two, and I, nobody taught me how to do it. I did it myself, and I self taught. I self taught myself, and I just went one wire at a time. It's actually really easy for anybody that's never done it before, and it's okay, Terrence. We're falling everywhere. It's all right, and but just a little bit of time and patience, like he said. If you're eating elephant, one bite at a time.
Hmm.
And if you're trying to get your phone to stay up, invest in a tripod.
Uh, well, going into my biggest gripe is model. I mean, it is about model manufacturers. But it's mainly about the ones that don't actually listen to consumers. The biggest one is Broadway. I don't know who asked for an Atlantic, a 442 Atlantic. I don't know who's been asking for it. I haven't seen any comments about it on their Facebook page, but I'm just using them as an example just because.
Yeah,
But it's a small engine and they're charging $500 for it, for sound that you have to rip out and replace and get rid of it because it's gonna break in 5 minutes after you take it out of the box. So, I mean, I've been begging for DCC Ready from Broadway for I don't know how long, but they've told me a couple times that they're not going to produce it because they don't make enough money off of it. They tried it once, but it didn't work. Now, when they tried it, they were doing Paragon 2, and that was their best damn sound they had. Because when you think
yeah,
about
that was
it,
that's when they did the stealth line.
yeah, because when they had Paragon 2, that was the highest quality sound you got out of a steam engine. Because in that same era, you had what MRC, steam sounds, and kind of Tsunami One, where it sounded kind of tinny.
Yeah,
And ESU didn't. I mean, they were around, but no one was using them.
yeah, there was nothing on the American market really for ESU back then.
No. But that's my biggest gripe is companies, model
No,
manufacturers not listening to actual consumers.
and it's important that you do as a company in business at all, whether you're in the business of model trains or the business of fast food. It's as a business, your consumers are the ones that make you what you are. Without your consumers, you don't have the income to sustain what you do. And when your consumers are giving you honest reviews, criticisms, not slamming you through the dirt for not putting tint on windows, but actually giving you honest, good feedback about your product and telling you some of the things that they love and some of the things that they hate, you got to listen. You got to be keep an open ear, keep an open mind. And I mean, granted, nothing's going to be perfect. I'm not saying that everything's going to be perfect. You're not going to get an out of the box exactly as you might like it unit. That's why people do renumbers. That's why people weather. That's why people do certain changes and they do freelance. It's all about creativity. Let your juices flow. But as a company, you definitely got to listen to your people because again, without those people, without those pre-orders, without those sales, you're not going to exist. You're not going to be able to put forth, $750,000 in the research and development on a unit. But also, to be fair, people, the consumers, have to remember how much it costs and how much goes into creating a unit. It's not as simple and cut and dry as okay, we're going to look at some photos, we're going to make something on a CAD program or a 3D program, and we're going to print the shell, and we're going to do this, and we're going to slap it together for $1,000. It's much larger than that,
Mhm.
and it takes a lot of time and money. And people have a lot of oddball requests that are not big demands. As prime example, scale trains got slammed recently up until they announced their first four axle. And the reason they kept getting slammed is, oh, well, great, another Givo. Oh, great, another Dash 9. Well, when those are what's selling, that's what they're going to produce. They're a business. They have to make money to stay operational. But the thing is patience. If you're patient enough to let them make the sales and do these continued runs of these popular selling like hotcakes locomotives, that's more money they're going to be able to invest into future development and research for future programs. Prime example, we've seen the four axle locomotive that they have put out there now. So it's a game of waiting. And like I said just a few minutes ago, if you want it that bad to where you can't wait, make it yourself.
Oh yeah, and these units, the amount of Dash Nines they sold, because I believe they sold out of every single one of them. These are paying for those Jeep 30s that are getting made.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe the all of the Dash Nines from every road, especially the Santa Fe weathered ones, they're sold almost instantly.
Hmm.
There were a few that they stumbled across. I think there was like 15 or 20 that they stumbled across in the warehouse, and those again were gone. They announced, put it on the website. Well, we found these in the warehouse, and they're here, but they're here today, and now they're gone tomorrow.
Right. Let's see. So we did kind of talk about what we already kind of liked about the hobby and our gripe and all that. So what's next on your workbench there, Dave?
Uh, well, I've got the UP 844. I had it redone, and I have to relocate the female end of the wiring harness where I put it at. It was actually sticking out of the locomotive a little bit too much, but I can't couple the drawbar, so I got to relocate that inside the tender a little bit further in. And other than that, actually, workbench is kind of cleared.
Hmm.
I
Did your
think.
Dash 8 turn out the way you wanted it to from Atlas?
Oh yes, yes, that's my pride. That's one of my pride and joys now. That one, it's quite, yeah. I love that. I am going to probably um it has a Tsunami 2 21 pin decoder in it, but I'm probably going to pull out at some point, no rush on it, and pull out the Atlas motherboard and replace it with probably with a decoder buddy, and to where I can have a little bit better um, flash rate for the strobes. I want to do them because the newer um, Tsunami 2s has a specific function for Amtrak strobes where they had two existing already. Now they have one now where they flash independently of each other to where they're um,
Hmm.
and they'll get in sequence and out of sequence, in and out of sequence, like real the real strobes on Amtrak.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I
I want to
have.
replace that.
Yeah, I have one of those. I mean, I'm sure I could do it on ESU if I really tried. Um, One thing I don't like the Atlas did on those is they just painted on the red markers on
Yes.
either end.
They've got to be drilled out.
Yeah, I mean it. For as much as that engine is, you'd think they would have done that.
Yep. And I'm going to go back to gripes with manufacturers, and then that was something that we were all talking about earlier is taking them apart to work on them.
Oh yeah,
That that's like Atlas is probably one of the hardest manufacturers to take apart, I believe.
I've heard from a friend of mine uh, who lives down in Tennessee, Mitchell Paul.
Yeah.
He took apart two of my Rapido RS11s because he needed to take them apart just to clean them and grease them and all that. He said they were the biggest pain in the butt to take apart. I mean, MTH, as I've heard, are a pain to take apart, but he said Rapidos are a bigger pain because
No,
it's damn near every detail part has to come off of it just to get it off.
I've never worked with Rapido locomotives, um, or MTH for that fact. But in what I've dealt with, now I will say this Genesis UP844, it's got screws hidden everywhere.
I
So it was, I mean, under water hatches, there. Well, I'll pull the tender right here. I can show you that there's a screw under here underneath the oil bunker, screw down here underneath the last water hatch. Then there's two teeny tiny, like almost like micro screws beside the at the back of the rear tender, at the back of the tender underneath it. Don't even really look like they would have anything to do with the shell coming off. But yeah, you got to. They're, I mean, they're almost the size of screws like would be in a pair of glasses. That's how small they are. And so it's like now, and as far as taking the locomotive, there's a screw hidden under the steam dome, and then there's one somewhere else. There's just two simple screws to take that apart, but they're hidden. You don't you've got to take out. It's like Where's Waldo trying to find what screws to take them apart with,
Yeah,
and I literally had to with my Atlas Amtrak Dash 8. I literally had to go on YouTube and find out how, find out how to take it apart because not only do you remove the coupler pockets, there's 6 tabs that you that go through the side seal down to the frame that you have to pry apart with screwdrivers that are they're underneath the trucks. You got two underneath, like in near the fuel tank, but the other two are two on each side at the truck. So now you're trying not to break detail parts off the trucks and underneath, and it's like, why can't you just be like scale trains? Remove the coupler pockets, lift the shell right off. Voila.
yeah. I will say, Steel Trains has made it a lot easier to access everything, and
Yes, it's very accessible.
mhm. But yeah, I mean, it's Scale Trains has made everything easier, at least to
Yes.
get to. Um, I'm looking at it, I'm just trying to figure out, what else to say. I mean, I like where they have their speaker mounted because it's, right up there on the radiator. So all the sound goes out instead of just being
But
pointed
that's
down into the
actually,
fuel tank.
but it's actually not where it's at.
Hmm.
It's back there by the radiator. It's underneath. It's in between the body weight underneath on the back side of it. That's one thing that I will have to give darts to scale trains about is trying to access the speaker. You do have to just about practically completely disassemble the locomotive to get to it,
Hmm.
to get to where the speaker's at, because it's underneath on the underside of the body weight above the rear truck.
Hmm.
But the way the sound amplifies out from underneath it, you wouldn't think you would get to see where it was at. You wouldn't think you would get any sound from it at all. But where the sound amplifies out from underneath it, it amplifies through the whole locomotive, so it sounds like it's real.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they make up for it in that aspect.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then, I mean, so we're going to talk about recent releases here. Athearn. Yeah, Athearn's Athearn Genesis and the recent run and the recent release of the DDA40X. Can I just say the lights on the LEDs on that thing look like bulbs because of how dim they are? I mean, mine's the old run, but I've got bright LEDs in it. Ditch light, bright LEDs,
Yeah,
bright headlight. Number boards don't do anything but a bright beacon, and it's also got truck lighting. Athearn's lighting looks dismal compared to my aftermarket one.
yeah. The upgrade to LEDs. I think they just have them set way too low. I don't know. The only
I
thing
think
that
they
I've
also put
got,
resistors on them.
I think they have. I think the resistors are too high for them.
Hmm.
That because they're so dim that you can't see what's going on.
Yeah, and I mean they also did the markers up here as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
but mine are not lit. But they made them as bright as the headlight, so dim.
yeah.
I have their Conra SD80 Max, and those marker lights on the Conra SD80s are, well, first of all, they're wrong because I should be able to turn both sets on with one function button. But no, I have to actually change the direction of the locomotive to turn one on and then turn the other one off.
You talk about left and right or the front and back?
Front and back.
Okay.
That's not a function. It's forward or reverse.
That's
And you can't have them both on. So if the locomotive's just sitting there, you can't have them both on.
they're not supposed to work that way.
No, no, it's not. Oh, welcome back, Terrence.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to step out. Had some fatherly duties I had to tend to. So,
Oh, good.
oh, so what have I missed, or what are we talking about now?
Oh, just
I think marker lights.
we were talking about Athearn Genesis's latest release of the DDA40, the new run, and how the LEDs look like bulbs because of how dim they are. They're not bright; they're dim. I mean, it's. I saw videos of it, and I'm not impressed. For a unit that costs that much, those lights should be as bright as scale trains. I mean, regardless of how old, of how old it is. I mean,
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Like prime example, this is an old unit too. I mean, hell, it used to be this unit here used to belong to Amtrak. It used to wear. It could have worn the bloody nose scheme at one time. Could have wore Phase 3 because that's what the SDP 40s. Yeah, there you go. Prime example. David's got. There you go. Before and after. So I mean, I get it, but I mean, even the headlight on this thing, it's an Athearn as well. That's the funny part about it. It's coming from the same manufacturer. Light on this thing, plenty bright. When it's on bright, you hit the dimmer button and it goes down to a proper dimness. It looks about right.
mhm,
Um, it's just but it's just those little hit or miss things.
Hmm.
Sometimes they make the biggest difference. And that again goes back to criticisms um, that we were talking about before from the customer base to the manufacturer. Got to be willing to listen, and you got to pay attention to those tiny things because
mhm.
we got a lot of rivet counters out there, and they
Yep.
they they definitely pay attention. I can't say I'm not one of them because I am. Um, I pay attention to small things. That's why I do what I do.
Mhm.
But no, I can understand that gripe.
Mhm.
I've had it myself. I've experienced it before. I've had a unit just have a unnecessarily dim headlight and just like, that doesn't quite look right. But it is sometimes hard to find that delicate balance because you don't want it to be too bright. You don't want it to be too dim. You want it to be right there in the middle where it looks realistic and it doesn't look toyish or if you will, if that's even a word.
Mhm. I mean, I have one engine, one in my fleet that a buddy of mine did. Um, but I told him, I said I wanted every light on it bright, only because I wanted to be able to showcase just how many LEDs can be shoved in one locomotive. Because I want it to be noticeable. So he fit about 16 LEDs in it.
And when
Very nice.
And
and it's all in how you do it. I'm gonna hold this up to the camera, and I don't even know if it will pick it up or not.
I see
Hold
it.
on, my Facebook Messenger just went off. That is an LED at the end of that wire.
yeah, they're
Yeah, I
not
see
big.
it.
I mean, it's literally about the size of a grain of sand.
Hmm.
And believe me, I did not. I bought them pre-wired because I don't. Props to whoever
I need a
had
telescope in order to wire it.
Superman vision to to be able to see how to solder that, knowing which lead was negative and positive on that LED to sign it. But
I'll
those,
say whoever wires those for a living needs to be paid a lot more than whatever they're getting paid. 'Cause,
I'll
uh,
I have a whole remnants of a whole bag of things over here of LEDs over here, and these little things. Where'd my battery go? Um, are of course I don't see my battery now. Great. Where did my battery go? I have everything over here, and I just had it.
Yeah, you can worry about it with a when you do a
I'll do it.
how
Oh
to.
no! Here we go. 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 That these little things are actually really bright for to be a micro LED. That
Hmm.
yeah, they're pretty bright.
and that's and that's actually kind of. Let me turn it towards y'all to where you can. The LED is
What
actually
I
facing
like
to you.
about that is it has a very incandescent look,
Yeah,
which is
this is actually what they call a warm white, which gives it more of the incandescent like bulb.
Hmm.
And I've got the bright cool white for some of the newer locomotives that are using the LED daylight bulb type bulbs and stuff in them. And when I do strobe lights,
I've also noticed that a lot of the Tier 4 Gevos, not in terms of the headlight and ditch lights, but more so the truck lighting, and platform lighting. All of that stuff seems to be LED now as well. I've even
Yeah, it's
seen on
that
some of the
like the
Norfolk
bright
Southern
white
rebuilds.
LED. Yeah,
That's another thing that was pretty cool that I liked about the SDP here is it comes obviously after and it comes factory with truck lighting on the front trucks. And it's not too bright and it's not too dim. It actually is a pretty good representation of what it would look like. The only thing I will say about it is it does look a little too cool. Um, I think it could be warmer. The headlight, perfect. Looks warm enough. Looks like an incandescent bulb. Because I mean, I don't care who you are. Back in the day when these things were running the rails, they didn't have LED. They didn't have LED truck lights because these things were running the rails before I was born. So, in fact, fun fact about the SDP 40s, um, there is one confirmed to exist. There are two others rumored to exist, and they are both EMD demonstrator units. Um, the last existing one, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, BNSF, well, it's what it used to be, 6979 or 6976, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was the one that the only reason it got saved is because Mayor Seaboard wanted to use one when BNSF was phasing them out to be scrapped. Um, Mayor wanted to use one, painted up in Mayor Seaboard paint, along with the Norfolk Southern SD40-2 that wears the Mayor's paint. I can't remember the running number off the top of my head.
I can't, but I know that that one still exists and is
Yes, it does.
operational.
Yep.
But I
It is
can't.
the
It's
single known one like that is 100% confirmed left that survived. Um,
I can't.
and it's owned
Um,
by some museum or of
yes.
transportation or something
Yeah.
like that. I can't remember
I
exactly.
want. Is it Illinois somewhere in there? The one that had what is it? Illinois Railroad Museum that has the Burlington Rockets and Illinois Central 1630.
It could
That
be. I'd have to look it up.
or is it in or is it in California? I can't remember. I don't know, but I do know
I
it's
don't know, but I do
operational
know
and
there was
is
I do know there's a FP45. I think they renumbered it to Santa Fe. What was it? What was it? 108,
one of
198, 195, something like that. They restored it hell less than 10 years ago.
well I don't
Painted it war bonnet paint.
yeah one of
Granted, that was an FP45, but
one other they had two. Santa Fe still had two when 3751 was first restored. That ran behind it for a while, but I don't know what become of them after that. When
so I've heard a couple of
that'd be a
When
good.
Santa Fe went back when Santa Fe went from the blue and yellow back to the red and silver war bonnet with the super fleet.
I remember that one. And
And
I
then
know that the
what just
SDP,
what happened to them after that, I don't know.
it's hard to say. And that's the unfortunate part of trains is seeing, because I remember when I was, yeah, I'm only 30. I was born in 91, for those of you that don't know. 90s baby. I remember growing up, I would go to the railroad tracks. I lived in the town of Remington, Virginia. For those of you who don't know where that's located, again, right along the Washington District. So all you got to do is look it up. Tracks run right through the middle of town. I remember watching C40-9 top hats, which oddly enough, Mitch and I have a quite the story about one of those,
Yeah, we'll
a
save
brass
that for
one to be
episode two.
exact. Yeah, we'll touch more to that in the next one. But
Hmm.
I used to see a variety of power go down the rails, and now it's just and that's why I stick with this kind of for the most part this kind of diesel era. I appreciate steam, but I'm more of a diesel guy. I think David and Mitch both know that. Um, but that's why you don't see any steam sitting here. So, but I love the older diesel power standard cabs or full width cowls. I think that those are pretty cool to see. Um, Not wide cab everything and rebuild AC everything. And that's why I love this hobby. Is it gives me the opportunity to see things that I did enjoy seeing as a kid, or would have had the opportunity to see as a kid, that I now cannot running on any Class One railway. And I think that's probably the one thing that keeps me in the hobby. As expensive and frustrating as it can be sometimes, it's enjoyable. Weathering, it's fun. Challenging but fun. And I think that's why myself, just kind of giving you a little background, I think it's why I have sticked with the hobby as long as I have. My late biological grandfather, he got me started in it. He passed on June 16th, 2017. And when he did, I inherited his entire collection of model trains, some of which I have sold off, some of which I've hung on to. The stuff I sold was O gauge, and that's because I don't do O gauge. It's too much, too big for me. I don't have the space for it. As you can see, I've got a cluster of stuff all around here. I need to have a garage sale. Maybe when I do, we can post it on YouTube and we can auction it off or something.
Some of
So,
Terrence's crap.
man, just random stuff, man. I got stuff everywhere. I got a lot. I got a wild collection of NASCAR stuff, Matchbox, Hot Wheels, trains, Star Wars memorabilia. Uh, if it's a hobby and it exists, I've probably been involved in it at least once or twice. So,
Well, we're an hour into this recording now.
oh wow, yeah, we've been here for
Yeah.
a minute. So,
So much for the 30 to 45 minutes that we'll upload.
yeah, I think we kind of overshot that just a smidge, but it's all good.
Uh-huh. Well, it was only the first episode of Many to Come.
Many more to come.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if you ain't tired of listening to us talk yet, don't worry, you'll get there.
Well, when we all start posting videos, I think, we'll be able to, kind of shorten everything and, kind of get everything where we need to be and all that, only starting out. So this will be only the second video of the channel. So,
Yeah.
Right. I got you. Well, hopefully my work schedule will continue as it is right now. It's kind of trickled down a little bit. We got out of the busy season, um, and we're kind of slow right now. We'll probably pick back up in a couple months, but in the meantime, hopefully I'll be able to sit down. I got to get this weather, that weather, yeah. The workbench is full. It's been full for months.
yeah,
So,
and invest in a phone tripod so you can put your phone down on it
yes, yes,
and,
yes.
just
Instead of
have your
falling
hands
all over the
weathering.
place. Yeah, most definitely. I think one of the I think I'll throw a little foreshadowing. I think one of the I think the first weathering video that you guys are going to get from me is probably going to be this right here. I don't know why I love the SDPs so much now. I used to think that wide cows were ugly. Used to hate them.
They are ugly.
Used to not be. Mitch doesn't like them still, but they grew on me. They just grew on
They've
me.
always been
So
my favorite. There's always been some of my favorites.
I think that they're pretty cool. And the SDP is a very big locomotive.
Yes, it is. It's massive.
It is. Um, and this is what I love about Athearn, man. They could have just, yeah, the DD40, obviously, yeah, two 645s. I'd hope that's a big locomotive.
Well, it better be. It replaced the big boy.
Yeah. But I think the coolest thing about this in the Santa Fe scheme that Athearn did is, like we are talking about back in the older days. In the older days, blue box especially, like SD40, for the most part, all of the shells were identical. They had the same detailing. It wasn't road specific. But one of the cool things about the STPs and why the STP was initially labeled as a failure by Amtrak were the constant derailments from the steam generator back here in the back. There was a tank of water because it's a steam generator, which means it needs water. And that water would slosh around, and the design of the tank was not good. It didn't have great baffling, and it would cause the locomotive to shake and dance down the tracks and wiggle its way off. Well, when Santa Fe got them, you can see here represented, there's the block off plates put in place of where the steam generator stuff would have sat. But if you look at David's unit, the steam generator stuff is probably still there, as you can see. Yep. And that's the level of detail we have these days. So before you gripe, be thankful, because that would have been a pain to have to do yourself with styrene and
Yes.
All of that.
Oh, yeah, well, I think I'm going to end it here, just so we have more material for later.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure Dave can't wait to get his local programmer in so he can, start writing files and all this, that, and the
Oh
other.
yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I don't know. We may not be able to get a hold of him there for a few days after that sucker comes in. He'll be too busy playing with it.
No, I still have to get an external hard drive for my laptop and to where it doesn't slow it down so much.
Gotcha. Well, you guys, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been fun talking.
Like, comment, subscribe.
If you want to see more, and if you
Yeah,
don't,
pretty much.
oh well.
And if you fit into the category of misfits, well, you're at the right place.
Look no further.
Like and comment below.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. See ya.
All right, see ya.